If you want clarifications, I have so many questions. I'm not a legal expert. Everybody already knows that. Will, welcome to the show. Good to have you back.
Great to be with you guys, as always.
What was I'm going to let you just give me your general reaction of what took place this morning with the bond posting coming down from 480 something to 170 something. That's a dramatic decrease. Donald Trump said his collateral on posting that is cash. He didn't seem worried about that number. And then the second trial, which is the hush money case with Stormy freaking Daniels in the news again, staying on schedule, not being postponed past April 8th or 15th.
Yeah, look, it was a big day for us. We were staring down the barrel of the gun with this outrageous, essentially $500 million bond obligation that they were going to make us post just to have President Trump have the right to appeal this insane New York judgment against him. This morning, the New York Appellate Division ruled that we weren't going to have to post that bond. They stayed execution of the judgment. Tish James isn't going to be able to go around trying to take over Trump Tower or anything like that anytime soon. We're going to post this bond, and then we're going to get to the hard business of appealing this outrageous case. And I think our grounds for appeal are really, really strong. So we're looking forward to the pathway ahead on that front. In terms of this so-called hush money trial, which is actually a totally bogus business records trial under New York law, it looks like we're going to go to trial on that next month. I think April 15th is the date. I'll be out in New York supporting the team for that. But we feel really, really good about that case. At the end of the day, this is a case that relies on the testimony of Michael Cohen, who's a man who's been found to be a perjurer by basically every court he's appeared in front of in recent years. This is a very, very weak case. Legal commentators said from the start this was the weakest by far of all the prosecutions against President Trump. The case should never have been brought to begin with, but we're going to take it to trial, and I have a lot of confidence in the arguments we're going to bring to bear.
So for this portion of the conversation, we'll take a break and then I'm going to get into some more theories and thoughts on the broader outlook for President Trump as he's running for re-election. For the hush money case, can you tell me what he's being accused of right now that is so important that we're bringing it up in 2024? Like, when did the alleged crime occur? What was the crime? And why is it being dealt with here in the spring of an election year for his re-election?
Yeah, it's funny. They call it a hush money case, but the case isn't actually about hush money. What happened is that in the lead up to the 2016 election in October of 2016, Michael Cohen paid money to Stormy Daniels to essentially buy her story. Later, President Trump, Michael Cohen was one of his lawyers, continued paying Michael Cohen a legal retainer after he was in office as president to handle personal legal affairs for him. Those expenses were correctly booked in President Trump's personal business records as being a legal retainer, as being legal expenses. Those are payments to his own lawyer. Michael Cohen has since alleged that some of those payments were paying him back for the money that he paid to Stormy Daniels. And Alvin Bragg, this far-left Soros-funded DA in New York, has claimed that, therefore, these business records entries were fraudulent under a New York business records law. I think this case is extraordinarily weak. What they're saying is that President Trump recording payments in his own books to his lawyer as legal payments is somehow a fraud, and it just doesn't really make any sense. In addition to that, they're saying that because these records were being made allegedly in some way to cover up payments that should have been campaign expenses, that constitutes a felony under New York law. Now, in terms of the campaign finance angle, both the FEC and the Biden Department of Justice declined to take any action, declined to prosecute President Trump on exactly that theory. So what you have here is a radical leftist DA who's stringing together the most absurd case imaginable. And it's all part of this radical campaign of election interference against President Trump. They want him to be sitting in a New York courtroom instead of being out campaigning for president. And to me, that's just an outrageous abuse of our legal system.
We're speaking with Will Scharf here in studio as one of Donald Trump's lawyers, specifically mostly working on the immunity case. Is that correct?
We're the appellate team, so we're handling just about everything at this point. But just talk to me like I'm a kindergartner, which should probably that's the entry level that I have here. Why is it? Because this doesn't make sense to me as somebody who's on the outside of the legal system looking in. Why is it
that in all of these different places, these charges that are being thrown against Donald Trump, they're all stretches of charges. And I don't feel like if you compare, I'm just going to say, I don't think Donald Trump has never made a mistake in his life because if somebody wanted to investigate me, they'd inform me of a crime that I committed that I didn't know I committed. Like, I think they can find the crime if they've already identified the criminal. But why is it that in all of these different cases, they can stretch these charges out to make them so punitive, like the $486 million bond in New York and the circus going on in Fulton County, Georgia, and then go to appeal, and then everything's kind of righted? It seems like it's very punitive to Donald Trump to put him through the cost and the time expense to go through the circus in order to get to the more common sense appellate court.
Yeah, look, I think that President Trump hasn't committed any crime. So for them to indict him, they've had to build these absurd legal theories to drag him into court. And I think to the modern left, the pain is the point. Forcing him to go through this process, forcing him to spend money and resources on his legal defense. That's why they're doing all of this. When he says it's a massive election interference conspiracy, I think President Trump's absolutely right. It's worth noting that the key guy in Alvin Bragg's office, in the New York DA's office, who's pushing this prosecution, as President Trump just said a few minutes ago, is Matthew Colangelo. Colangelo was also the guy who started the civil investigation in New York Attorney General Letitia James's office into President Trump and into the Trump Organization. He was also briefly the number 3 in the Biden Department of Justice, a very senior level official in the Biden administration. So all of these cases are connected. They're not happening in a vacuum. And when President Trump says that this is just a big election interference conspiracy, I think he's right. If he weren't running for president, I firmly believe that none of these cases would have been brought in the first place. And that's why it's so outrageous what they're doing to him.
Well, okay, so I want to take a quick break. We've got Will Scharf here in studio with us, one of Donald Trump's attorneys. He's also candidate for Missouri Attorney General here in the state of Missouri. He's a former federal prosecutor as well for the Eastern District of Missouri. And I'm going to ask him your questions along with a list of ones that I have written down here on my notebook. I have so many. So if you want clarification on something, if you have heard people saying one thing about the legal issues, or if you want to challenge something Will has said, Will, you're always up for the people who want to call you out and say, no, 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 no. You're always ready to fire back.
Always happy to.
Like a true lawyer. Let us know on the Annie Frey YouTube channel. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back here in studio with reaction to Donald Trump's pretty decent legal morning so far in just a minute. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Annie Frey Show. It's been quite a morning so far with Donald Trump and his legal situation, and I want you to know that we've got Will Scharf here to react to all of it. Will Chamberlain's going to be with us at 1:25. We're going to dig more into the bond situation with Will Chamberlain and the Article 3 project at 1:25. But I've been fielding your questions, and I've got several of mine for Will here, who is one of Donald Trump's attorneys, also candidate for Missouri Attorney General, former federal prosecutor. Will, we were talking in the break a little bit about some of the other cases that Donald Trump faces right now, and I'd like to take a stop in Fulton County, Georgia, but not for too long. The Fani Willis ruling by the judge and him coming in saying that she can stay on the case. I kind of feel like, based on the reaction I was getting from much smarter legal people than me, that they didn't think there was any way that she could still stay on this case. But then here she is still on the case. Nathan Wade bounced. What was your reaction to what that judge said about that trial?
Yeah, look, we wanted her to be disqualified, obviously. We're going to take that issue up on appeal now, and I think we're going to win on appeal. But if you just read Judge McAfee's opinion, where he said that essentially Wade had to go but Fani could stay, he's absolutely vicious to her. He excoriates her for her conduct during the trial. He notes it on numerous occasions that he found her testimony to be not credible. I mean, this was a devastating opinion for Fani Willis and a huge victory for the defense there. So we're going to continue trying to get her disqualified. In the meantime, trial proceedings are continuing. But we feel very good about that case. You know, this is a case that when it was first announced, the media treated it sort of breathlessly and said this would be the one that would finally take down President Trump. You know, well, oops, it turns out that if you have incompetent prosecutors bringing baseless charges against, you know, a couple dozen defendants, things don't go well for you in court. And that's what we're seeing in all these cases. It's just case after case after case. falling apart under the weight of what they're trying to do here, which is bringing baseless allegations against President Trump as a way of interfering with his ability to run for president.
So again, every time we talk about these different trials, and when you come in here, maybe news is hit in any one of these different places. This morning it was the hush money trial, where that trial will begin in April 15th. So about a month, less than a month from right now. The bond that needed to be posted by Donald Trump has been drastically reduced. He can post it with cash, so he's good there. But again, everything is timing, it seems like, because if Donald Trump goes into November and he has the poll numbers that he looks like he has right now, it seems like there's some resolve around every single time the justice system, or the injustice system as it is right now, throws everything in the kitchen sink at Donald Trump, and then it goes to appeal and it gets the bond gets reduced. The appeal goes through. Something gets thrown out. It seems like as long as Trump continues to pursue this, he's stacking up some wins. And politically, when they go all in at the beginning and then have to retract so much, it really does solidify in many people's mind the idea that there is a lawfare taking place, or that every single time, I mean, within the first 10 words that Donald Trump says when he walks out to a microphone after one of these court cases, election interference. What is the timeline in your mind? Which cases are you thinking are going to see their natural conclusion before the election?
Yeah, look, I think that a vast majority of the American people at this point see this campaign for what it is, which is a campaign of lawfare aimed ultimately at interfering with the 2024 election. When we were first brought on last August, it really did look like President Trump was going to spend the year of 2024 in courtroom after courtroom after courtroom. That the federal trials might go. You had Georgia, you had New York, you had all of these trials just queued up to go. What we've done since then is just insist that President Trump be treated like any other defendant, that he have all the defenses available to him. We've made some good arguments. We've entered some strong motions in a lot of these cases. And as a result, you're seeing the timeline get pushed further and further back. You're seeing these cases collapse under their own weight just because of how baseless most of them are. And I think President Trump, as a result, is going to have a fair opportunity to run for president, and I think he's going to win. I think the American people see this whole process as just a total perversion of our system of law and order, of our courts, of the rule of law. And that doesn't reflect well on Joe Biden and his sort of gang of insiders who have brought this series of prosecutions against President Trump.
When Trump says election interference, is that a political point? Is that a theory? Is there any actual crime being alleged with the phrase election interference and his constant repetition of that?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are criminal statutes that some have argued might be applicable here. I think his point is a broader one, though. I mean, he's said repeatedly that the Biden folks had the opportunity to bring these cases years ago. They didn't until they knew that he was going to run for president again. The reason these cases were brought is that President Trump is the leading candidate for president of the United States of America. And because they don't think they can beat him at the ballot box, instead they've tried to kick him off the ballot. They're trying to throw him in prison.
I forgot about that major L.
Yeah, I mean, we heard constantly from the leftist media that Trump was an insurrectionist and he's not going to be on the ballot. We got up to the Supreme Court and we won 9-0. I mean, it's just over and over and over again with these people. They will do anything to interfere with President Trump's ability to run for president and to be our next president. And that's just, it's not the way these things are supposed to work.
Quick Rick says, I don't know if the libs realize it, but they are interfering with the election, as it turns out, in a good way, which is kind of an ironic way of putting it.
I think they've revealed to the American people how unprincipled they are, that they don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the rule of law. The only thing the modern left cares about is advancing the cause of leftism. And they're willing to run roughshod over the Constitution and every principle we as Americans hold dear if it gets them closer to that goal. And in this case, they need to take out President Trump because he's a real threat to the ability of the modern left to turn this place into a leftist socialist dystopia.
I know that you are on Donald Trump's legal team, and that is a very different entity than his political team and his campaign. But I want to pick your brain on this, and you can take this in whatever direction you want. The folks on the left, especially the people on the agenda-driven media networks that we all know and love and don't love, they're very worried that if Donald Trump gets elected again, that he is going to exact revenge on his enemies. And one part of me is like, well, stop doing it to him first. and the other part of it is, I look at what Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all of the stuff that's coming out and has come out through congressional testimony and through, Hunter Biden's own laptop messages, so on and so forth, whistleblowers that seem to be squeaky clean and have their story straight. What does it look like if Donald Trump gets elected and all of this lawfare has been used against him? You know the man personally.
I think Donald Trump is deeply committed to preserving and protecting America. And when you listen to what he says, his priorities are very clear. We've got to close the border. We've got to get this illegal immigration situation under control. We need to drill, baby, drill. We need cheap energy to get our economy moving again. President Trump is laser focused on bringing back exactly the kind of prosperity and success we saw in his first administration. And I think all the leftist sort of cries and fears, it's all garbage at the end of the day. President Trump wants to make America great again, and he's dead set on doing that.
Is, in your opinion, of knowing him in a personal way through the work that you're doing through his legal team, is he running for himself? Is Donald Trump running for his own revenge for the lawfare that's been used against him? Or do you believe he's really doing this to make America great again?
I think he's running because he sees the absolute disaster that the Biden administration has been. He sees an economy that he helped build just turning to mush. He sees the border thrown open after his administration did an incredible job of locking down the border. These are real, tangible, terrible things that Joe Biden has done. And I think President Trump just knows that he could do a whole lot better, in large part because he already did. I think we see a very clear contrast in the 2024 election between success and failure. We have two people who have served a term as president. The American people are going to get to decide, were they better off under President Trump than they are under Joe Biden? And I think for a vast majority of Americans, the answer is going to be Trump all the way.
Will Scharf in studio with us. Do you trust the election system?
I think we have a lot of work to do there. I think we need to make sure that the kind of shenanigans we saw in 2020 never happen again. We've talked about that on this show before. I think the operation that the Trump campaign, that the RNC is building out, I hope that they're going to be able to do exactly that. But we need to be laser focused on election integrity, especially with a high stakes election like this coming up.
Yeah, I feel like every win that Donald Trump can mount on top of another, on another. And you and I are just talking about the legal stuff. Set all of that aside. Show me a policy where Joe Biden is winning, and show me a policy where Donald Trump is, articulating where he would be and what he would do and how fast he'd be willing to do it, where I'm going to go, no, I'll take the Biden side of that. Like, there isn't one.
Yeah, look, the two biggest issues, you look at any poll, the two biggest issues on Americans' minds today are the border situation and the economy. And President Trump was a great president on the border and for the economy. Joe Biden has been a terrible president on the border and for the economy. It's the clearest contrast imaginable. America was much, much better off under Trump than it has been under Biden. And I think that's why the American people are going to return him to office. And I don't think it's going to be close. If you look at the polls today, Trump would win a presidential election if it were held tomorrow by like 320, 330 electoral votes. We're talking Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada. Just state by state by state. Trump is crushing it right now for very good reason.
I am excited to see what happens next, but I'm also kind of on the edge of my seat. So the next big, I got like 30 seconds. What's the next big thing to happen with Donald Trump's legal situation?
April 15th, we're probably going to trial in New York on the Alvin Bragg case. And then April 25th, we'll be back in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on presidential immunity.
And that's incredibly
That's a
important.
huge one, not just for Trump, for the future of the republic.
Amen. Well, Scharf, thanks for being in here with us. We appreciate you.
Great to be with you guys.